Hello, you are now entering the infinite void. Hang on tight. We cannot save you now.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode. I'm your co-host Matty.
And I'm your co-host Jacob, and today's episode is part 9 of our series, Humanity of the Future, Cryptocurrencies and NFTs. So it's been a long time coming. I've mentioned this on God knows how many episodes. It's kind of the same as simulation theory and climate change and probably artificial intelligence to some extent with me, because I have an interest in this. I'm under no means an expert or anything like that just before we start talking about this, but yeah, I'm interested in it and I've wanted to do an episode, and I thought what better time than to discuss cryptocurrencies in our Humanity of the Future series, because it's probably going to be the future of how people pay for things, and I think it'll be interesting to kind of dive in, have a look at what they are, some of the different types, like NFTs. What are NFTs? What is blockchains? And kind of circle all the way around to digital art, because that is also something that I think has a future in this space too.
Yeah, I feel like we should probably head up the episode with like, this is not financial advice or something like that, because I am also not a massive expert on crypto. I'm not in it at all. I sort of watch from the sidelines and generally keep up to date on what's going on, but by no means sort of massively involved in this stuff. But yeah, it's interesting, and I think I'm probably a bit more skeptical about the sort of future of it, but I think definitely it will play a bigger part. Whether it completely overtakes money or not, I guess we'll have to wait and see, and we might discuss later on. But yeah, it's definitely interesting, and at least sort of from perspective of the like the science and technology is behind it, a lot of it is interesting. And whether, I'm sure we're going to come on to talk about the blockchain, whether that sort of stuff eventually is used in cryptocurrency and that sort of takes over the world, or whether it ends up being used more in other sectors, it's definitely an important technology. So yeah.
And I'd kind of like to reiterate what Matty just said too. I've a little bit in it, so if anybody's watching and you're curious, I'll try and not be biased in what I talk about too much, because don't want to be that guy. But yeah, it's an interesting one for me, because I kind of came across it at a similar time to learning about the stock market, and they're vastly different. But for me, I kind of found an interest in it at the same time, because I was quite interested in like finding ways of investing my money and trying to think of different ways of saving and looking at like having a portfolio and all this kind of stuff. So I kind of got really into cryptocurrencies and watching like the space of NFTs blow up and stuff. But for anybody that doesn't know what cryptocurrencies are, we've got a lovely little description for you, like I like to do at the beginning of every episode. But a cryptocurrency is a digital or virtual currency that is secured by a cryptography, which makes it nearly impossible to counterfeit or double spend. Many cryptocurrencies are decentralized networks based on blockchain technology, a distributed ledger enforced by a disparate network of computers. A defining feature of cryptocurrencies is that they are genuinely not issued by any certain authority, rendering them theoretically immune to government interference or manipulation. So it's interesting because you can do a lot with them, like you were saying. You can purchase things online. They have their own kind of like economic system. So they're going up and down depending on markets, who's buying in, who's selling, what is the cost for the gas fee, depending on what cryptocurrency you use. But on the other side of it too, it's very interesting, this whole like decentralized aspect to it, because I think that there's something definitely in that, and maybe more so in the like art industry and the music industry and stuff like that, because obviously a lot of that stuff kind of gets ripped off. There's a lot of counterfeits. It's quite hard to like control like the flow of money and stuff. And I can imagine if you were working within that industry and you were using this method, it would be quite good, because it's a good way of being able to like control everything yourself, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, I could definitely see that. For me, it's something that I'm going to talk about later. Is sort of like the control of currencies. Is that it, it to me at least seems more evident in other aspects of life rather than currency, that like consumer control and the ability for private individuals to own stuff
Yeah.
and be able to trace it. Things like art and music. I have got some issues with NFTs as they currently are,
Yeah.
but like the idea behind that's definitely, I think, more feasible. And maybe that's just me being a bit old fashioned in that currency is very tied to the state. Like currency is a thing of the state.
Yeah.
Um, so trying to sort of separate it as a separate thing is really quite difficult. Whereas something like art and music, it is fundamentally individual. So being able to just have a system that's able to track that and sort of facilitate trade in that is, I think, quite an obvious thing. And sort of is always crying out for this sort of stuff. So
Yeah, I'd agree with you, especially in like the art industry, because it almost feels like there hasn't been a model that's really like allowed art to like fully benefit from it. Because usually, like, for instance, back in the day, your art wouldn't really make any money until you were dead, or you had to get it in a gallery, or you were doing more so like tasks or creating artwork for people, which is kind of different. You're not like being appreciated for the artistry as much. And kind of the same with music, with signing labels or creating anything. And especially with meme culture, this is another thing too that I find really interesting. Like, the golden egg has come home to all of these people that were turned into memes, because for like a good couple of years, if you were like turned into a meme, you didn't really get a say in it. You were immortalized and you were kind of just used everywhere. And it's kind of cool that through NFTs and stuff like that, these people that were like the Charlie bit my finger or all these kind of funny things have been able to like sell the original version of that video for a ridiculous amount of money, and they can like finally be paid for being immortalized as a meme on the internet. And I've always thought that was pretty cool. But where I find it really interesting is not even with like the big or the well-known stuff. Like it's really cool seeing like new and upcoming projects that say have like a storyline or a backline to them. So like there's one called like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, I think it's called. I might have got that slightly wrong, but it's essentially like these 2D drawings of these apes, and they're all in different colors, and they're holding different things, and they have different outfits on and stuff like that. It's kind of very similar to the punks that everybody sees that sells for a lot of money. And for anybody that doesn't know what these punks are, they're like 8-bit punks, I guess, that are like weird colors, and depending on what color they are or what hairstyle they have or what theme they are, they're worth different amounts of money. But to my understanding, they were the first NFTs, and that's why they're worth so much money. But these apes, what I like about this kind of storyline is it kind of shows you what you can do with this technology too. And everybody that purchased one at the beginning has like followed this storyline that they've kind of done on their website and stuff. And basically recently there was like an accident in the warehouse of where these apes were being created, and like toxic waste had spilt on everything. And they kind of sent an email out to everyone saying like, oh, you need to check your artworks. And the artworks had been modified, and they'd all like become radioactive, and bits on them had changed and stuff. And I just thought that was really cool, because like you could now buy a piece of art that will change over time with like a storyline or something. And it's a really cool way of keeping people invested. And I'm not sure if it's just the millennial in me that grew up on like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh cards and all the ridiculous collectibles like action figures and I don't know, Bionicles and all that fun stuff. And there's just, I find it really interesting with this whole like digital collection thing. And I like that it can be changed, and I like that it can evolve. And I like that if you collect certain ones, they can be combined to create things. And I'm very interested in the space as a whole in the future of like gallery. I wonder if we'll get many because I've seen a few, but I wonder if there is a market for like galleries with like digital frames, like displaying NFT artwork and stuff like that, where you can like physically go and have a look.
Yeah.
Because I know there's a big argument for people that always say that like, you're spending $12,000 on a JPEG. And like, I get that is you can just save it onto your phone. You can copy it and paste it. And I can understand it with certain things, but I think with anything, isn't it? It's like, if you like someone's art and you want to spend money on it, or you want to appreciate it and you want to have it, then I guess how much it is worth is kind of up to you and the artist, isn't it? If you value it at a lot of money because you want it, then I guess you're willing to pay it.
Yeah, I think that for me was what I think sort of soured my impression of it. It applied to crypto and NFT, was that in the like early days, there was a lot of hype, and the hype is fair enough, that's fine, but it suckered in a lot of people who didn't really understand what it was. People who, and they're sort of complicit in it and a bit guilty. They saw something, they thought they were going to make an easy buck, decided to invest in it, and the bubble burst because it was a new thing. And that I think sort of soured my impression that you saw it happens with like meme stocks as well, things like GameStop and things like that. You inevitably get some people who put a lot of money into these things because they think it's a surefire way to double their money in like 3 days. And end up losing a lot for it. But yeah, the Pokemon thing is actually something I was going to talk about in that I think it's very similar actually, in that you can look at these sort of artworks and say there's sort of 3 ways you can look at it. You can look at like, okay, what is the physical thing that I am getting? And you're getting, in the case of Pokemon cards, a piece of cardboard. And in the case of NFTs, you're getting just a picture that you can download off the internet. That's one way to look at it. The next step up to say, okay, but what is the sort of creative worth of this thing? And you could say, oh, Pokemon card, it looks nice, it's got a nice picture on it, it's worth 5 or 10 quid. And I think the same thing with a piece of art. Oh, this is something that someone's created, it's taken them an hour or two, it's worth 100, 200 pounds. And then the next step up from that, okay, is but what is this worth as like a collector's item? And Pokemon cards go for hundreds or thousands of pounds in some cases because they're special. And no matter what the collectible is, whether it's priceless traditional art, like a vase that's worth £1 million, it's just a sort of piece of porcelain. Like, it's not really worth anything physically, but because of its history, or because of its impression, or because of its sort of like reputation, it has a value that sort of exceeds that. And the NFT thing, I'm still sort of a bit skeptical. I'm still not certain about it, and it is more sort of the market side of thing, of like these things being sold and people just sort of like trying to jump on it. But actually, what are they worth? Well, it's whatever people are willing to pay for it. And I don't really see a problem with that, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Something that really interests me about the NFT world, and I wonder how much this will kind of come into fruition, because I remember seeing one thing that sold where it was like a VR experience, but I was reading an article not that long ago, and I found it really interesting, and they were basically talking about how like you can view NFTs as like real estate. And like think about this like idea of like it's quite a dystopian future, but like say if like the future's not looking that great, whether it be the weather, whether it be the economic system, whether it be just society in general, whatever it is going to be that's going to happen, kind of thing. People were talking about how like you might start seeing like the rise of like artists and developers that will create like worlds that you can visit in VR, but you have to like own that world in like an NFT sense of it, kind of thing. Like you can only go and visit the worlds that you own, kind of thing. And I really think that there's something there. And like you were saying, like if you can sell an experience alongside something, I think it makes it better. And I think that's what I kind of like about this whole like digital world of collectibles and stuff like that, because it is weird and it it is a little bit unusual, and I'm kind of like you. I'm a little bit on the fence with certain things, but I find it interesting. And like I said at the beginning, I'm not sure if that's just my millennial itch of wanting to collect things because that's what I did when I was a kid. But I think that there's a lot of potential and there's a lot you can do with it. Like we were saying, like you do have ownership to it. You can have it evolve and change over time. I've even seen examples where, like, if you have collections and you collect certain cards together, they can kind of like produce other things and you can like add things to it and stuff. So I think it's interesting, and there's loads of different like projects out there. Like there was that Bored Ape one. There's another one called the Wanderers, which I think's a really cool one, and any space listeners, you should check that one out, because essentially what it is little 3D animations of you sitting in a spaceship and you're just flying past different planets. And I think the way that it works is you purchase what ship you want and what you're holding, like whether it's a pizza or a cigarette or something, and then you can buy different planets that you can fly past and stuff. So it's just really cool. I think it's like it's a really interesting way. It's like a Tamagotchi, really, isn't it? You're kind of like buying a digital thing that has a purpose that you're tied to for an experience, I guess. But a little bit back to cryptocurrencies. So for me, another thing that I find interesting about cryptocurrencies is how you're able to like do transactions insanely quick.
Yeah.
For me, that's something that I feel like the world needs. Do you know what I mean? I feel like it could level up a lot of places. I know there's a lot of talk, isn't there, of like cryptocurrencies like Cardino being used in Africa because it can like it's quite good, isn't it, in that term?
Yeah, it's definitely a thing about it, sort of, just how instant it is, and the fact that it is digital. And it still surprises me when you go into like traditional banks, they're still using like computers from like 1997.
Yeah.
And they always seems to run on like Windows XP, and it's like so that's definitely a part of it, is that you're able, because it is distributed in this way and it's not tied to central banks, you're able to create systems that don't rely on any real physical infrastructure that isn't already there. You could imagine that a sort of community in Africa, as they start to move sort of on with technology, they start to get mobile phones and internet access. Well, the moment you have mobile phones and internet access, you can do digital payments. So like there's no need to build a local bank branch or to build sort of like physical infrastructure to sort of facilitate these things like cash points or whatever.
Yeah.
Everything that they need to be able to participate in the sort of wider economy, which could be, maybe they're making something and they're able to sell it on, or maybe they need to pay for healthcare or whatever it might be. The moment that they're able to sort of just get online digitally, they're able to participate in an economy. So that's definitely a part of it, is sort of what sort of cryptocurrencies and wider digital banking sort of allows people to do. It's definitely an advantage.
Yeah, and I this is probably one of the other big problems too, is that like cryptocurrency will like disrupt major industries, especially ones that with like finance and law and places that hold the money. So I can imagine there is no rush to move towards it anytime soon. And obviously it faces a lot of criticism too, doesn't it? Because of how like decentralized it is. There's a lot of like illegal activity that is used for. I know there's not loads, but because of its decentralization, it allows for that too. And obviously it also can allow for big amounts of money to be moved around.
Yes.
And avoiding like tax issues and stuff like that.
Yeah, like, traditional cash, there's always going to be sort of crime involved in it, because ultimately these things are slips of paper. And, if you have criminal money, if it gets spent one or two times, someone gets hold of it, spends it in a shop, and in that shop owner goes and spends it in a pub or whatever. No one's able to really trace it back, through the sort of criminal gang. So, but it's the fact that it can be done on very, very large scales very easily. And it's as easy to do it with £1 million as it is to do with £10. So
yeah,
I think that's sort of the concern, is that, I think people accept that there's always going to be some crime that uses sort of money, but it's when sort of large groups start moving millions of pounds worth of Bitcoin around, and it's very difficult to know where it's going and what it's doing, that people get a bit concerned.
Yeah, it always makes me laugh. Well, it freaks me out as well. Do you ever see those, like, I follow one on Twitter where it's just like it's like a Bitcoin announcement when when money gets moved from like one wallet to another. And I had one a couple of days ago, and it was like $89 million worth of Bitcoin had been sent from one wallet to another, and they were both unknown. It was like, nice.
Yeah.
Someone's moving a lot of money I wonder if that's just like someone's little private fund where they're like, oh, I just need to move this much over today. But
whether it's some college kid who invested 10 years ago
Yeah.
and is now sitting on a fortune.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I had a friend at uni, and his dad was so like against like letting the government like know what he was up to. And to be honest with you, he was a bit of a traveler, but he was so like dead against it that he actually had Bitcoin, and his like son that came to uni with me, his dad would like send him like money in Bitcoin, and he always had to go to the London ATM to the Bitcoin ATM to take it out, and that was the only way. And he spent it all in like freshers. And by the time we left uni, it obviously gone up in inflation so much. And we'd like worked it out that he'd have like been able to pay off his student loan like 6 times if he'd have just kept it. But it was crazy. And at that time, it seemed like a massive inconvenience to him because he had to go all this way to take it out. It wasn't just like, oh, I'll use it for this, and this, because he didn't want to like use it for like on the dark web and all that kind of stuff as you can. I know that's another big problem. You can obviously buy like a lot of drugs and firearms, and I think you can even buy like
organs.
Yeah. I think maybe even people, which is terrifying in its own right. I think you can can't you like hire hitmen and stuff as well?
Yeah, I think anything's on the dark web.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. But yeah, it's interesting, and obviously there's different types of cryptocurrencies. The first blockchain-based cryptocurrency was obviously Bitcoin, and I think it still remains the most popular in value, isn't it? Like it did hit $1 trillion, didn't it? But then I know everything dropped, and I think I
think it's around the $1 trillion mark.
Yeah. And then obviously you've got other ones that have kind of come out of it, like Ethereum and Litecoin, and then other altcoins like Cardano and EOS and Dogecoin and all the fun ones. I find all of them.
Didn't you have some Dogecoin at some point?
Yeah. So interesting story. I have a lot of Dogecoin, and well, not a lot, but I have a little bit. When I was at uni, and it was like worth nothing, like 0.1 or whatever it was. I bought like 32,000, and it was like $3 at the time. It was nuts. And when it went to like 70 cents like 3 months ago or whatever it was, obviously that would have been worth almost $32,000. But I couldn't get access to the account that I'd bought them on because with crypto. Have you ever bought crypto?
No.
Okay, so when you like create a crypto wallet, you get given 12 words that you have to remember in that order, and they are random. And I'd written them down in my notes, but for some reason I hadn't written them in the order, and I don't know why I hadn't written them in the order, but I just hadn't, and I kept trying, and it just kept locking me out. So I still haven't got access to it, but I have 32,000 Dogecoin somewhere that I bought because my friend took me into it at uni. But I find them really interesting, and I find these meme coins interesting just because, and I'm not saying that anybody should go and buy a load of them, but it is interesting because, especially Dogecoin, because it was just a meme. Do you know what I mean? And like the little Shiba Inu dogs and the Doge and all of the funny memes like Much Pizza and all that kind of fun stuff that comes out of it. But like it's been interesting recently because obviously they've had some big announcements. You've had Elon Musk and the one of the main creators of Ethereum, I forget his name now, which is terrible because we're doing an episode on cryptocurrencies. But they've both joined the board for Dogecoin now. And I think a company paid SpaceX to put a satellite in space, haven't they? That was paid in Dogecoin.
Yeah.
So it's just nuts. And
Yeah.
what I find really interesting as well about Dogecoin is it uses a lot less energy than Bitcoin, because this is another problem, isn't it? Shout out to Darren Dawson if he's listening. He likes to make this point a lot on Twitter, and I respect him for it, because whenever I talk about crypto, he always comes in to let me know like the implications around energy usage and climate change. And yeah, from what I've gathered, and obviously it's pretty obvious because it uses quite a lot of energy, doesn't it? Like mining Bitcoin and mining any cryptocurrency, really.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting thing in itself. I've done a little bit of research into mining, and I've tried to do it a little bit in the past too. And it's cool how you have like you build like a little rig, and you kind of just use it to like mine and create you a currency. It's a bit weird. It's like playing a mobile game, but without the fun little village. Kind of just solder everything together and watch it go. But the whole energy usage thing is a problem, and I know Elon made a big deal out of this, didn't he, a couple of months ago, and then everything crashed because that man could, and I wouldn't say he controls the market, but he definitely influences it. And when he started coming out and saying that it wasn't very environment friendly, I remember everybody, there was uproar, wasn't there? But it was true. It obviously, and I think they are still working on it, haven't they? They've made significant improvements, because I was watching like some of the Bitcoin like event that was a couple of months ago, and they were like talking about how they tried to make improvements and stuff. But ideally, you want to do what Russia are doing, aren't they? And just kind of like build your Bitcoin mining operation either at the North or South Pole.
Yeah. Iceland's another one. Iceland's got quite a big market for it because it's obviously cold, but they've also got lots of geothermal energy.
Yeah.
So there's this free energy just floating around everywhere. People can make use of. For some countries like Iceland, there's a big market for what they can, for the amount of mining they can do and sort of setting up rigs and things. So
yeah, it will be interesting because obviously you've got a few countries now, haven't you, that are like taking it on like their legal tenders of like El Salvador and stuff, and then you've got other countries like China that are just banning it left, right, and center.
Yeah,
but which is interesting because I think China's the third. I think China has the third largest Bitcoin holding, and they've just banned it. So I wonder what the government's going to do with that.
Yeah,
it's pretty interesting. But yeah, you have ones like Bitcoin, which I think, as we're recording this podcast, is at around 47,000. And then you can go all the way down to ones like Dogecoin that are like 20 cents, and then things like Shiba Inu coin that are like 0.00700 and something. But they're interesting, and I like some of the projects. I like that they're adding to them and they're doing things around them. I think I have quite a lot of interest in Ethereum, but that's probably because that's the one mostly tied to NFTs, and it seems like once they can figure out a way to lower gas prices, which I'll explain in a little bit for anybody that doesn't understand, but once they can kind of figure out a way to lower those, I think, which they're going to try with Ethereum 2 whenever that comes out, it should be a pretty interesting one. But yeah, I keep saying NFTs, and I've just realized that we haven't really kind of broke down what they are. So for anyone that has hung on and still doesn't know what one is, an NFT is a non-fungible token, which is fun to say. And it's basically a unit of data stored on a digital ledger called a blockchain that certifies a digital asset to be unique and therefore not interchangeable. NFTs can be used to represent items such as photos, videos, clips of audio, and other types of digital files. Access to any copy of the original file, however, it is not restricted to the buyer of the NFT. Whilst copies of the digital item are available for anyone to obtain, NFTs are tracked on a blockchain to provide the owner with proof of ownership that is separate from the copyright. The NFT market tripled in 2020, reaching more than $250 million. During the first quarter of 2021, NFT sales exceeded 2 billion. So there's a market there, and it's probably because of all of the Bitcoin billionaires and millionaires. You know, when it all boomed from nothing and everybody had thousands of shares and millions of shares, they became exponentially rich. They had nowhere to spend their Bitcoin. They couldn't withdraw it because then they'd have to pay tax on it. So they probably kept it sitting on their little cryptocurrency wallet. And then people started creating art and they were like, great, I have hundreds of thousands to spend. You want 12 grand for that circle? Sure.
Yeah, it's a pretty mad time. Because it was around the same time as like the meme stocks, wasn't it? So around April of this year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It all went a bit sort of crazy.
Yeah, because you have that really famous artist, I think, called Beeple, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And he started doing all of those like 3D renders of like Trump sitting on the sidewalk, homeless and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like selling for ridiculous amounts of money. And then he had one of like Elon Musk driving a Cybertruck on Mars and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a weird one because there's been so many different avenues in the NFT world as well. Like there's been some like real like shiners that are just decent that have like really tried to create a cool space. Like there's one that's called FVCK render, and I'm not going to say it because I'm not sure if it is pronounced as a swear word or if it is pronounced as that, so I'm just going to say that. But what I really like about what he's done is he specializes in like 3D renders and artwork, and he does like cool masks that are like chromed and stuff like that, like mannequins and stuff that are chromed, very futuristic. But he recently built like an entire solar system, and each planet had a theme, and on that planet there was expositions that were like really cool, and you got to like put on this thing when you went to the website, and you could go to the different planets and view the different things that he was doing, which I thought was really, really cool. But then you've obviously got the other side of it too, where like celebrities and athletes have like created digital cards or sold their most famous touchdown or goal and stuff like that, which is kind of cool. And then you get in other people that are like selling digital autographs and stuff like that. But yeah, there's some cool stuff. What I'm interested in to see in the future with NFTs are more collectibles. I'd like to see something like Pokemon or something really, but not Pokemon, like something new. I don't know what you could call it. Maybe like crypto creatures or something. There you go. That's free for anybody that wants to go and use it. Make some like weird creatures or something that you could collect or something like that. I really like that idea of it. And I think that another cool thing to do would maybe be like music festivals. I think that would be really interesting. Like maybe when you buy it, you get like a digital copy, like your ticket maybe spins around or something, and you get some extra content of like the backstage stuff if you keep it all weekend or something like that. I know that there's a lot of cool projects happening around shoes and stuff, isn't there, where you can buy like a digital version of the shoes, which you can wear in AR. So like if you've got AR on your phone, or if you've got AR glasses, so you can see them digitally on you. And then they also send you like a physical version too. So like they've got like special Nikes and stuff where you can do all that kind of stuff. But that's another thing that fascinates me too, is digital clothing, because that's huge in the NFT space. There's a lot of like sneakers like that are being created by people that are being sold as collections and stuff. So it's cool. And I've seen a lot of concerts as well being done through the NFT space, which is really interesting. But yeah, I think there's loads for like creatives to do within it. I think it's finally a really good way to like actually make money for the talents and stuff. Like if you want to release music and stuff, you can.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think it's a really good way of kind of stopping privacy too. Like the music industry is always, and the film industry, I guess, has always had a huge issue with rip-offs. And I guess with this, like there can still be rip-offs, but I think what's nice about the kind of like market that NFTs is building is people kind of want that authenticity and that ownership. And they don't really want to flaunt that they've got a fake version of it. Like they only really want to tell people if they've got the real version of it. And I think that's good for the arts space and sector, because people are always trying to like undervalue other people. Do you know what I mean? Especially in art stuff. Like if you're really good at doing portraits, you should just charge however much you want to charge for doing portraits, because that's your skill and people should want to come to you. And unfortunately, there'll be 5 people in your city that will charge 10 quid less than you, and then the next person will charge 10 quid less than you, and then all of a sudden, if you're a photographer or a musician or whatever it is that you're doing, you're like really undervalued and not really being paid what you should be paid. And I think this is a really good way to actually kind of like have the value that you probably deserve if you're willing to work for it. Because I know obviously there's a lot of people that aren't too, but yeah, I'm excited for the NFT space in the future. I think especially the NFT space, it will definitely be around in like for the future of humanity. I think I can definitely see that's where like art and music and most things will probably go, especially like even looking at like this pandemic, do you know what I mean? With everybody living indoors, if we ever do go more into a lockdown or living indoor habitat, which will definitely be the case on other planets, and maybe with climate change it could cause a few problems to make people stay indoors. I can definitely see like ownership over digital stuff becoming much more like important than real stuff, which I guess is also a good thing for a materialistic world. If we can shift people to owning digital stuff, it's probably a good thing for the planet too.
Yeah, well, yeah, owning digital stuff has been around for a while, hasn't it? You know, going back to, you know, skins on games and stuff. It's been around for quite a while. So
exactly, people would probably argue that probably was the first NFT, like a skin or an outfit or a camo for a gun. On a game.
It's just sort of adding a extra level of, as you said, authenticity, a sort of certificate that it is yours. So yeah, I think it's interesting, the NFT stuff, and as I said, it in some ways I'm still sort of skeptical, but I think it's more likely to take off than cryptocurrencies, just because it is a more personal thing than money is. So yeah.
No, I can see that. This is one little bit that I wanted to say here. So currently I don't know if that will change in the not so distant future, but the most expensive NFT sold so far in 2021 was by Beeple, and it was called The First 5,000 Days. And it basically was a piece of artwork that he did every day for 5,000 days, and he put them all into one collage, and it sold for 69.3 million.
Mad.
It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm excited to watch this space. I'm sure we will probably cover it again in the future, if depending on where it goes and what kind of things it does. I know we kind of talk about it quite regularly over on Twope News, which is This Week on Planet Earth. Every time I seem to reference how the market's going, it crashes.
Yeah.
So I've tried to pull it back a little bit, but yeah, I think it's really interesting. But have you got anything else to say on it? Or
on the crypto stuff, I just had I put in our notes thing. I put an article right at the top, a link, and this is just sort of I guess I just wanted to get your sort of thoughts on it. It's that China's an interesting one at the moment. So that you said they recently sort of banned crypto, and at the same time they're pushing this digital one. So they're pushing this digital version of their currency, and I guess a bit difficult to understand, because a lot of, particularly in China, a lot of sort of transactions are done digitally anyway. Things like WeChat Pay and Alipay are huge in China. Big, much more than sort of in Europe and America. A large amount of their stuff is done digitally through these apps. So by making a digital currency, what I think they're sort of doing is that ultimately our money is sort of tied to actual physical money somewhere. So like the government will issue money that goes to banks, and then they sort of digitally transfer that to you so you can do stuff with it when you take money out. Whereas what they're doing is they are like producing this digital currency from the start. And this is why I'm sort of skeptical. And obviously, China maybe isn't the best example of what is good about this stuff, because a lot of what they're trying to do is sort of claw back control from cryptocurrency so that they have control of it themselves. And actually, part of it is they're trying to claw back control from like WeChat and Alipay, so that not even these like private companies can own the currencies and own the marketplace. But yeah, the interesting thing about it is, I think, is that the benefits of cryptocurrency, like you said, of it being traceable and it can being instant and obviously not relying on cash, a lot of that doesn't necessarily have to be from a cryptocurrency. It could just be from a digital currency. Like for the average person, you can get all the benefits of a cryptocurrency, but without the sort of risk of it being implicated in criminal activity or it suddenly crashing and being massively volatile. You sort of still have the benefits of being a stable sovereign currency just from using these digital currencies. And this is why I'm sort of a bit skeptical about sort of cryptocurrencies, is that imagine if the US tomorrow came out and said, right, we're going to launch a digital dollar. So like it will function exactly the same as the dollar. It'll be able to go into your bank accounts. It'll be able to do whatever you want it to do. But like there will be this sort of digital dollar app, this wallet that you keep it in. Then what would be the sort of benefit of cryptocurrencies for the average person? And I know we sort of said about it being sort of separate from the banks, but ultimately, I think a lot of people quite like money being tied to the banks and being sort of regulated by the state, because the alternative is, as we see with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, it's quite volatile. So
I can see that argument. I don't know where. That's a weird one for me, because like I agree with you. I can see what you mean on that. And like I can also see the other side of it too, where people are like, oh yeah, but it's decentralized. I want to be able to make the decision over my money. I don't want the government to decide how much it's worth and what I can use and how much everything else is worth to pay for it. But I think at the same time, on the other side of it too, the only thing that would scare me about a digital currency, say like the digital dollar or the digital like yen, for instance, for me then is like you really are at the hands of whoever creates it. Do you know what I mean? That's the one thing I like about like crypto, is like kind of like nobody creates it. So if you opt into it, if something goes wrong and like it drops or it goes up or whatever happens, that's kind of on you. But whilst you're involved in it, like you don't really have anybody telling you like what you can and can't do with it, apart from the sites that maybe don't accept it yet.
Yeah.
As in comparison to like this, say for instance, like in China now already, if you cross the road when you shouldn't, you get fined. And that fine instantly comes out your account, whether or not you like it. It's not like, oh, you need to pay this in 14 days. It's just that has been debited from your account.
Yeah.
If you only had digital currency that was controlled by the government, even though it would be really easy to use and move around, what happens if the government decide that day that like, oh, you're not allowed to travel in this area because you broke the law last week, or because you haven't paid your bills, you're not allowed to get on this train because you're a danger to society, or something like that. You then don't have access to your money. And that's why it kind of falls back to the other argument too, where people are like, we don't need banks. I'm going to keep all my cash under my bed, because they don't want the bank turning around and it all being lost. You know what I mean? There's always someone that will take it a step further. And I guess that's kind of like what I like about crypto in an essence, is it's because it's kind of like, it's the extreme of the other extreme. It's like people that wouldn't want anybody controlling their money, but they've put it into something digital that nobody controls. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit weird, and that's kind of why I find it interesting. But I do get what you mean, but I think the only problem with digital currencies is somebody ends up owning it. If it's not decentralized like crypto. And I think that's the only good thing I like about crypto. But if it was more stable and less volatile, I think, and it used less energy. I think crypto would be ideal for people, but there needs to be ways to figure out like how to make it a little bit more, I don't know, I'd say like user friendly, more public friendly, and just kind of stop the shady stuff, which is difficult because it's decentralized. You can't do that, and that's the whole point of it. So, and now I'm just sounding like a liberal talking about something that isn't allowed to happen. But I don't know. I feel like it's a good start. It's I'd rather crypto exist than it not exist, because it allows for people to work on it, create alternatives, and it's better than just governments of the world having their say. It is quite nice that we've managed to build a system outside of the system that, well, unfortunately, it seems like only the rich are using at the moment.
Yeah. But yeah, that was the only thing that I thought the China digital currency stuff was quite interesting. It's obviously, like you said, with their sort of stance on crypto, it's a bit different. It's a bit weird that like they are obviously taking the viewpoint of they want to control everything, which means that any argument that I try and give for like, oh, maybe we could use other digital currencies rather than cryptocurrencies, it does not have a good background. But yeah, I see what you're saying, and I thought it was just interesting to talk about the other side of it. So
it is. I agree with you, because I totally get the other side of it, because I chat to my partner about it, and she's not sure about it, and we have these kind of discussions all the time, and I get it, because I still wouldn't put like a crazy amount of money into it yet for that reason, but I like how it works and I like the idea of it. But at the same time too, you can't use it enough yet, I find, like until everywhere accepts like Ethereum or something like that, I probably wouldn't start like having my paycheck go into like Coinbase, for instance, or be paid in crypto yet. But if I could use it everywhere, I would seriously consider it, because I'm in control of my money. Then I've got nobody telling me what it's worth apart from the market that buy and sell into it, kind of thing, which I find quite interesting. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up this week's topic, cryptocurrencies and NFTs. So for anybody else listening and watching, if you managed to make it to the end of this insanely heavy and technological one, I guess, I don't know what word you'd use, techie one, big announcement. We have launched our website. If you're listening to this on the day that the episode came out on Friday, we launched a website yesterday. So head down to the description to click the link. There's loads of fun stuff on there. There's a little homepage / landing page, which tells you what we were up to and latest episodes. There's a little about section where you can read a little bit more about the Infinite Void and some of the fun lore around the idea that we have with our little AI narrator and everything. There's a page for all the episodes where there are links to every platform, some show notes, and all that other fancy stuff. There's also a page for This Week on Planet Earth, so you can go and look at all of our fun news little topics. And then I think in the future, Matty and I are going to look at posting some articles on there, and there's potential for a store and all sorts of fun stuff. So head over there and check it out. And whilst you're there, sign up to the newsletter so you can keep updated. We're going to work something out with that too, so you can have a little something every month. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, guys, make sure to hit that like button. If we missed anything or didn't mention your favorite NFT artist or cryptocurrency, let us know down below, because I'm more than happy to check them out. I'm massively interested in this, so I've got loads of time to spend on it. And yeah, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure to give us a nice review and make sure you've hit that follow/subscribe button, so our updates can show up in your library every week when they go live, as we've moved to every other week now. And yeah, guys, we will... Oh, and one last thing. Sorry, I keep forgetting. Social media. You can find us at Infinite Void Pod. You can find me at Jacob E. Carson and Matty at the Matty JMP. And yeah, we will catch you next episode for part 10, our conclusion to humanity of the future. Hey everyone, we wanted to take a moment to tell you about our brand new Patreon page.
Yeah, so we've devised a load of new goodies that are neatly packaged across 3 different tiers for you.
Tiers start at £3 and go all the way up to £10 a month.
Just to say, the Patreon is in no way an obligation, and we're going to continue making the podcast as it is freely available across all the platforms. But if you'd like to support us and show your support, you can now.
So yeah, head over to patreon.com/Infinite Void Pod for more information.